My name is Vera Stone.
Okay. And Ms. Stone, you have as I understand it, a long time history with Titusville. You live in Titusville now, or you have lived in Titusville?
Oh, I have lived in Titusville. I was born and raised in Titusville, but I live in West End now. But our home house is still in Titusville, and my two sisters are still living in our home house.
Okay. Okay. How old were you when you lived in Titusville?
I was born in the house, our home house. I was the first of 11 children born at 45 First Avenue South. And that was our home house there.
What do you remember about life in Titusville growing up?
What I remember mostly about life in Titusville, it goes back, like I said, I was born there. I remember it being very raw and very safe. And what I mean about raw is it was no paved sidewalks, it was no paved streets, it was just trees and grass and houses. But it was safe. I remember a story my mother told me about that I used to walk away. She would get busy doing things, cooking up and washing, and she would put me on the front porch, and she said I would walk away. But it was Staples shoe shop up the street from our house. And I would migrate that way somehow. And one day my mother was looking for me, and Mr. Staples had got me and brought me in the shoe shop where he was. And when my mother was frantically looking for me, he told her, he said, "Miss Weldon, I got her." So she's here. And my mother got me and brought me home. And she said she started taking my shoes off so I would walk away. She said, by the time my feet got used to the gravel, I still walked away. But it was Mr. Staples that caught me and kept me there till my mother came and got me. So I would think that would be safer than what it is now.
You talked about that shoe shop. Are there other stores or businesses in Titusville that you remember?
Yes, attached to that shoe shop, it was a beauty shop. The lady there was Miss Edith Bradley, and my mother used to let her press our hair. And so I remember those two places. And then across the street from there, it was a big building there. And I think it had something to do with the Hughes, Fred Hughes, because they did build a confectionery right down the street from our church now. And that turned out to be a grocery store. But originally it was Fred's Confectionery. And after that, he got in a little trouble, and he had to let his sisters take over the store. They were school teachers, and they couldn't manage it to keep it. And then they sold it. And after they sold it, I think Mr. Walter got it. And he had a grocery store, and just like a little cafeteria, not a cafeteria, where you get hot dogs and hamburgers. And then from Mr. Walton, then the Hawks got it. And from the Hawks, this down through the years now. But Mr. Walton kept it during I'd say he had it during the 50s and 60s, Mr. Walton, he had it. And I think later on, much later, the Hawkins, they got it. And they kept it, and they ran it as a grocery store and a confectionery that you buy hot dogs and hamburgers.
I've talked to other people who talked about life in Titusville. I think, you said something a moment ago, I think you used the word safe. Granted, your mom did not want you walking away from home unattended. How old were you then?
I had to be about 4, because I can remember only remember the incident of in that shoe shop. I could hear the machinery, the machines, and he had set me on a shelf, I guess where he placed some of his shoes, and I could look down and see him work. I don't remember going into the building. I don't remember him stopping me from going where I was going and bringing me in the building. But I remember the noise, and I could remember him standing there below me doing some work.
the neighborhood, the community was safe, you were comfortable in the neighborhood?
During that time, and you think, we talking about 1930, I was born in 38. So we talking about 39, 40, 41, something like that. It was safe then because everybody knew each other. You knew your neighbors. Not only your next door neighbors, you knew some of your neighbors that lived in the back of you, the backs that took your back. So you knew people on the next street as well as people on the street that you lived on. And everybody was like your mother at that time because everybody looked out for each other. And so it was a sense of safety because I knew after I started the school, if I did anything wrong, my mother knew it before I got home because somebody, if they seen it, they would call her and tell her.
So Titusville was a village?
I would say it was a village at that time, at one time. And I don't know exactly when it changed. I guess it changed when we started losing homesteaders and started getting a lot of renters in apartments. And when Lumber Village came in, that brought in a lot. And that was the early 50s. And so it changed. It changed the neighborhood then.
I learned something in speaking to some people yesterday. Do you remember a golf course where Elyton Village used to be?
I remember that we called it a pasture. My older sisters my mother said, would fix lemonade and they would help them fix lemonade and they would go down there and sell it to some of the white people that would come over that were golfers. And but I remember even as a child before Lumber Village, we used to play in that pasture. We would go down there. It was a big hill. We would go up that hill and we would play. And that was just another outlet for us, to play in, to go and play. I remember that very well.
You said play. Were there games you played or just running up and down?
Just running up and down. Just going up the hill, running down the hill. It was a lot of rocks up there. And the story was it was Indians that was buried there. We used to laugh about it. But it was some big rocks on top of that hill. And it wasn't any writing, but it was just marks on it. Just marks on it. And they said those were burial grounds for Indians. That's what we used to say as children.
Nothing to back it up, just
nothing to back it up.
Just a tale of children.
A tale that was told, and we just kept it going and thought that's what it was.
I grew up in Titusville, and I never knew of the golf course or the pasture, as you put it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did know about at least one, maybe even two of the bowling alleys that were in Titusville.
Oh yeah, they had two. It was Star Bowling and trying to remember the other one. There was one right there in Titusville, right off of 6th Avenue, and it was one up by Iota Street. It was
where I remember that one being close to where Golden Flake is now.
Right, it was right there where Golden Flakes. And it was a bakery on the other corner there, but that's where Golden Flakes is. That's where it was, the bowling alley.
I've been told of businesses, I think a dry cleaners, I remember the dry cleaners, in fact, there on 6th Avenue, across from where Leonard's store would be more recently, and of course it's not there now. It sounds as though that, particularly back in the 40s and 50s, Titusville seemed to have it all.
They did, and that cleaners up there, it was one on the corner right across from Leonard's. That was Superior. That belonged to Mr. Pippins. And the other one across the street, the building is still there. I don't know whether they still use it as a cleaners. I don't know whether it's some kind of business where they do beauty shop or something like that. but that one still stands. But the superior, that was part of my husband's family. I married in the Stone family, and their mother and the woman that Mr. Pippin married, they were sisters. Mm-hmm.
Now, when you were growing up, what did you want to be?
I knew I wanted to be a nurse because that's all I played in mud pies and doctor's offices and things like that. But at one point, I like outdoors. I always like outdoors adventure, and I like traveling, just being outside. And I first said I wanted to be an airline stewardess. I told everybody I want to be an airline stewardess because I'm going to travel everywhere. But that soon faded away, and I back to my original being a nurse. That's what I really, deep in my heart, I know that's what I wanted to be.
Were there nurses or perhaps persons of color who were in medicine who you knew, or how did you formulate the idea that you wanted to be in medicine?
I guess I formed that when I was playing my games. You know, you make those make-believe games that you play outside, and you're working in a doctor's office, and you're seeing people coming in, you waiting on them, and we played with drink bottles, you know, made dolls out of drink bottles and things like that. Any kind of toy we wanted to have, if it was a horse or whatever, we made it up. We improvised and just made us one. But I think just from my early childhood and my make-believe playing that inspired me. That's what I wanted to be, was a nurse. But it was a lady in this was which I was grown then. I was in coming out of elementary school. She was in the LPN. I used to see her walk with her uniform on, and that kind of inspired me too, to see how neat she was walking. And a nurse, I said, yeah, that's it.
When you were growing up in Titusville,
Mm-hmm.
did you see or experience Caucasians, white people?
Not many, some. We used to have a insurance man used to come to our house, and that was and then it was an old man that used to walk the neighborhood. I don't know whether he was really white or not, because he had a saying. We didn't know. A lot of kids was afraid of him, and he would walk through the neighborhood. I'm gonna wash your ring. I'm coming with me. And he would say medicine. He would say a flavor, for bacon. He would say a black drop and things like that, because my father used to buy the black drop and send medicines and things from him. But early on, when I was very small, those were the only two. The insurance man, it was the only two that I think I didn't encounter as far as white people coming along.
Did you have a role model, a hero to whom you looked up as you grew up?
I can't say I really. The only somebody that I really respected most of all was my parents and older people. I really haven't, and I can't remember saying I wanted to be like anybody. I never had in my mind I wanted to be like this person or that person. I knew that I wanted to be a nurse, and that was in the back of my mind. But I just had a lot of respect for older people. In fact, if they got too old when I was really young, I was almost afraid of them. And that's how much respect I had for them. And so I guess a lot of things that I did, as I got older, a mission work that I used to do, it was geared toward older people.
Is there anything, or at any point as you grew up, were you given any notion that there was anything that you could not do because of the color of your skin?
Yes, we know that we couldn't go into a restaurant, but we used to go to town. sometime we would, most of the time, we would walk the railroad track because we wouldn't go no further than Sears and Roebuck. And they had a little stand outside now, just like a little fruit stand. I mean, a stand that you could go and buy a hot dog and get drinks. So we could do that. But when we got a chance to go downtown, like to Newberry's and places like that, then we realized that we couldn't go and buy a hot dog. We couldn't go sit at a counter then. So I guess that was be my first implement that in some places. And then it was the signs there. The signs were, white only. And then when we had to ride the bus, it was the signs that, you go in the back of the bus. So it was always a sign. So we was aware of that. Early on, we was aware of that. And I don't think it really bothered me so much as I was growing up, because my mother's golden rule was to us, you do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. Don't want you out there fighting. Don't bother nothing that don't belong to you. And just, mind your own business. Somebody offer you something, she always told us to say, no, thank you. Always, no, thank you. And so I guess it was early, not so early in my life, just later on as I grew, that I began to know that, it was a limit to where I could go and things I could do as being black. And that's when it really began to soak in about the racism and things like that.
Obviously, your aspiration was to become a nurse, very clearly. But if another child, maybe one of your siblings, had said, I want to be president of the United States, how would you have responded to them?
Oh, boy. I don't know how I would have responded. I probably would have asked them, how you know you want to be president of the United States? Or maybe I would have said, no, you don't want to be president of the United States. You might want to do something else. Because I didn't have any connection. It didn't have me with no connection that I could tell whoever it was, yeah, you can be president of the United States. I probably didn't know at that time. I probably would have told them, you could do something that I probably seen more that I'm more familiar with, maybe an athlete or something like that. It just probably wouldn't have done on me that you can at that particular time. But as time went on, as you grow, yes, you can be anything you want to be.
But to stick with your youth, at the time that you were coming up, the reality was black folks don't come in these doors. Black folks don't shop in these stores. Black folks don't use these restrooms. They don't drink from these water fountains. Right. The can'ts way outnumbered the cans.
Absolutely.
And not to put words in your mouth or the like about, maybe you can comment. You said you wanted to be a nurse because you had seen your neighbor who was a nurse. And you had gone to doctor's offices and you had seen medical people, so you could envision that. But you had no vision of a black person being at that level.
No. And you have to understand, I was born at the time it was really, deep segregation. The Ku Klux Klan was still coming out, terrorizing people. And so I guess it was a matter of, you knew your place. You stay in your place. Only for safety. I think my parents, they suffered that just for safety. Just make sure they stay safe and their children stay safe. And when coming up, if that was their norm, you don't do this, you don't go there, then it become a part of you. because of safety. And I think that's why they did it, because of safety, because wasn't nothing being done. If somebody came out, I know that I never experienced that. It never happened to my parents or either my grandparents that I know of. They never talked about anything like that. But they heard about it, of different other people that was involved with the Ku Klux Klans and how they did their families. And I guess it was just a norm then. But see, my dad was born in the 1800s and things, and so, you know, it was even more with him. So he was going to raise his children like he was raised. And but as time passed, you know, and as people get older, even back then, it was people older than back then that didn't accept certain things. And I guess it's the way you reared up, how you brought up, that would influence, that would impact you too, until you really start thinking and get more on your own, that you see you want to make a change, that you realize, hey, it don't have to be this way.
Even though it had always been that way.
Right, you can begin to realize it don't have to be this way.
Coming back to Titusville, as you said, there were shops, stores. As I've talked to people, it seemed that there was nothing that you needed beyond Titusville.
No, it wasn't, because I didn't mention the Joy Theater. They even put a theater up there for us on 6th Avenue. And so we had a theater. We used to have to walk to Smithfield. They had one, I can remember when I was smaller, before we had one in Titusville. And on occasions, sometime our mother would take us over there to the theater in Smithfield. But then eventually, Titusville got a theater. It was the name, Joy Theater.
That building's not around now, is it?
The building is there, but I don't know what it's being function as. I think the upholstery shop was there at one time. And I don't know what's in there now.
Where on 6th Avenue was that?
It was right on the corner of, well, it wasn't on the corner. It was between Center Street and 6th and 1st Street, I believe. And it was also a black grocery store on the corner down there on Center Street. I almost called the people's name, because I think the son owned the one down by Loveman Village now. It's a little, I don't know what it is, because I don't go that way now, but it's a little store down there, and I think it's one of the children that was off of that father that had that grocery store right there on 6th Avenue and Center Street. Yeah, we did have a theater and the bowling alleys.
And the bowling alleys.
Mm-hmm. And a nightclub up on that corner. I think my older sisters, they went to Dolan, we call it a Golden Nun, a Golden something. And they graduated in the 40s. And my older sister, they graduated 45, 46 from Parker High School. Mm-hmm.
Did you go to Parker also?
I did. When I graduated from Washington School, naturally I went to Ulmer. I stayed there about a first semester, half a semester, and then my mother let me go to Cleveland, Ohio, to live with her sister. So I went to Cleveland, Ohio, and I stayed with my aunt up there for 2 years. So when I came back, I was in the 12th grade. Didn't want to go to Ulmer anymore. I had outgrown Ulmer. I wanted to be with the big boys. I thought I wanted to be with the Thunder and Herd. So I went to Parker in my 12th year. And well, I can't say unfortunately, I got married early. I was 17 when I got married, so I was still in high school. But I never stopped going to school. It was just a part of, I think I was most influenced when I went to Cleveland, Ohio. School down here, it was very boring. Even when I started in the 1st grade, my mother used to have to take me and give me to Miss Thomas. That was my first grade teacher. I cried every morning. I cried every morning that she took me to school. And so when I did get used to being around other kids and went on my own, it was just boring. I mean, I was good in school. Now, one of my main teachers was Miss Town, Miss Lucille Towns. She stayed in Titusville. And a lot of our teachers that taught at Washington School lived in Titusville. The Pensons, Miss Upshaw, and those kind of people, you couldn't do hardly anything that your parents didn't get it. Because Negro Education Week, when the families were coming to school, everybody knew my mother because there was so many of us. And so as a consequence, they knew us. And so if we got into trouble, they would always call me as well to let her know what was going on. So it wasn't too much you could do. But when I went to Cleveland and I started school up there, I knew nothing about a gym suit. I knew nothing about, we didn't have it at Washington School. You didn't dress out for gym. And so that was exciting to me. I loved it. And so I really got more interested in going to school when I went to those 2 years that I went up there. I went to a junior school, Brownell Junior High, then I went to East Tech High School in Cleveland, and I enjoyed every bit of it. And so when I came back home, I got pregnant and I got married, but I had that desire just to go back to school, and that's what I did. I did finish Parker, but it was night school, evening school. I finished Parker High School. I didn't want a certificate, I wanted a diploma. So I went back and I got my diploma.
Would that have been like a GED or something? Or?
I guess it would have. I don't know whether GED was out there, because I got my my diploma in '61. My last baby, my baby girl was born in '61. And during the process of getting through that, and I was already going to school, and I graduated. I got my diploma in '61. I don't know when the GEDs came out, was available.
But you wanted a diploma.
I wanted a diploma. I felt like I had missed so much anyway. You don't see things until there's nothing you can do about it. You can't change what's there. And so I missed proms, and I missed things like that, that my classmates, original classmates, and even at Park and they went through that I missed out on. But for some reason, it was just important for me to have a diploma.
Almost so that you would measure up to some degree, or?
I guess it would be the satisfaction, because even when I was, when I first started, after I had my baby, before I had my last baby, I tried a Macolata. I used to roll my baby from my apartment down to my mother's house, and I would go to Macolata house. I think it was Macolata then. And but naturally, that happened. I think that went on for about maybe 2 months before I was known that I was married and I had a baby, and I had to stop. So then after I stopped going down to Macolata, it was still in me, that I wanted to go back. But I had another baby. So then I got caught in there, but still I want to go to school now. I want to get my diploma. So then I went to night school where I knew I would be safe and I could get my diploma.
I remember talking to someone about, you mentioned Ku Klux Klan, who talked about men in Titusville patrolling. Did you have any recollection, any knowledge of anything like that?
I didn't understand.
Okay, fathers, black men in Titusville patrolling the streets to make sure that no one came in to do anything in Titusville. Is that?
I don't remember them patrolling. I just remember families looking out for each other, because you could ask somebody next door, I got to go to town to pay a bill or something like that, and look out for the kids. I'll be back in about an hour, 30 minutes, however long they think they would be out. And the neighbors would take care. I don't remember as growing up as a child as black men patrolling the neighborhood. I do remember when my brother, when they got to be teenagers and things like that, they said you couldn't go in another community, you know, like if you wanted to date a girl in Smithfield, you just couldn't go over in Smithfield. Those young guys over there, they protected that territory, like Titusville protected that territory, you know, and anywhere you wanted to go, south side, anywhere you want to go. My brothers and said, but they would talk about that, you know, you can't go over there because they want you coming over there talking to their girls. But as far as men, grown men, patrolling a neighborhood to keep it safe, I don't remember that.
On the subject of memories, what do you remember about the bombing of 16th Street Baptist Church?
I remember that because, like I said, it was kind of close. That involved the Pippins. And Chris McNair married a Pippin girl. And like I said, my husband, Richard Stone, his mother, and Mr. Pippin, the cleaner's man, that was my husband's aunt. There was two sisters. And so that kind of brought it very close to, you know, to them. It was a hurting thing. I could feel them grieving, you know. I wasn't as close. I had just married into the family, the Stone family. And they was different. It was by marriage that we was connected, you know. But I remember his aunt they were so grieved and so hurt over what happened. And it was a hurting thing, almost unbelievable, you know, that something like that could happen. So we're kind of deep on our side, because we heard it constantly, kind of felt it, you know, whenever he would go around his, because his mother had passed at that time, but whenever he would go around his aunt or something like that, the hurt was there. And that was very, very seldom. It was very seldom that, you know, he would do that. But just to hear about it was a hurting thing.
We talked already about segregation. We talked before about stores and other facilities where blacks could not go. Obviously, Birmingham of that time was repressive for blacks. That blacks blacks were held back largely. Did you feel held back at that time as you grew up?
When I left Birmingham, it was in 52. I just finished Washington School. They went to talk about. I had a semester. I felt it some before I left, but like I say, at that particular time, it wasn't too much it wasn't too much whites coming to our neighborhood, because Loveman Village really wasn't there then. They was in the process of building Loveman Village. But I felt that when, you know, like I said, when we would go other places out of Titusville, like when we go to town, that's when you felt it. And my daddy worked at TC&I. He was at U.S. Steel. So we didn't have to go to university. It was Hillman Hospital at that time. We all went to Lord Nolan. A little different when we would go out there. It was just a little different. You was accepted a little bit more. And really, we never was that much sick that Dr. Plum couldn't take care of. That was our neighborhood doctor. So Titusville had pretty much everything they needed. We had a doctor too. I don't know whether anybody mentioned Dr. Plum, But his office was right there on 6th Avenue in Titusville.
Where on 6th Avenue, do you remember?
It's right where the Family Dollar is right now. That's where Dr. Plum's office was. I think there, either where that church is.
Okay.
But it was right in that vicinity on 6th Avenue. And but when I came back, I'm a teenager then, 15, 16 years old, and I've seen so much, in another state. This down here was just something that, we don't have to, you don't have to put up with. You get a little, like I said, I came back, I thought I was too big I thought I was too big to be held back, with white people too,
So your eyes have been opened.
Very much so. Very much so. Even to the school system, how things were, the school system, how far behind we were.
When you went to work as a nurse, and I think I remember reading, you have military experience as well?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that military experience.
Oh, okay. I went to school, but I tell you about my nursing, a little about my nursing. When I finished high school and when I came back, I was married and everything, and I knew I wanted to be a nurse. I started working, I started off as an LPN. I went to Lord Nolan and got my training there. And then from there, I was hired at University Hospital. And this is when the junior colleges was coming to existence. And I think I worked for a LPN for about 4 years. I came out in about 64 and 65, and I started working part-time. And I started to go into Jefferson State Junior College. And I graduated from Jefferson State Junior College in 69. So I had my RN license then. And from that, a friend of mine, I had been working several years, but a friend of mine came to me and said, Vera, she said, let's go into the military. She said, it's just like a second job, so you get paid and blah, blah, blah. So she kind of talked me into it. I really wasn't interested in it. But she talked me into it, and we started our paperwork, getting things together. And she got married. She didn't go. I went, she had talked me in. I went into the military. I got commissioned to the 109th Evacuation Hospital here in Birmingham. It was a National Guard unit. I was the first black officer in the National Guard unit at the 109th. They had a couple of black enlisted females, I think maybe one or two, but I was the first black officer. I was commissioned in as a first lieutenant. And everything was so good. My husband was still living and everything. And my first summer camp, he drove me to Camp Shelby in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Everything was nice. Everybody was nice to me. And but as the years went on, I think I was in it for about 4 years. I made captain. I made captain very well. And all of us, it was about 4 white girls that went in the same time that I came in. As as the first black. It was about 5 of us went on our first summer camp. It was all of us, it was new, because we had just been commissioned in. And they was commissioned in also as first lieutenants. All of us was first lieutenants. We didn't have to go to boot camp. We had to take corresponding courses to keep up, to know what was going on. Everything was good. And after 6 years, I think in 6 years, maybe 7 years, I made major. And we always went to Camp Shelby in the beginning, but then we began to go to different other places. One of my most exciting places was out of the country was the Panama Canal. We went there. And Everything was really good. You know, you start, more blacks came in though. We had some more black girls to come in. And we had two to come in, and they was graduates of Tuskegee. And the white girls, they was already graduates of UAB. So everybody had the BS degree. And things were still going good. And then it got on the radar some kind of way that you're not gonna make no lieutenant colonel unless you got a BS degree, you know. That started singing a long time after I made major. Well, you know, I'm a go-getter. I started UAB School of Nursing. And I got my BS degree in 1982. Made the dean list one time. I was working all the time. I was doing that. My husband had passed in '73. I was the head of my household. It was times that I went to work that I wouldn't even take a sick day because I knew that I had to work. All of my kids was in school when my husband passed. They all was in school. And I had to felt the need. I had to go. And then I started getting pressure from the unit. All of my OERs, that's Officer Evaluation Reports, they were good. And you have to do those every year. You have to have an OER every year. So when the time came up for my lieutenant colonel, for some reason, I was being held back. I didn't know what it was, but I had noticed things started changing in the unit. Things started changing in the unit. That old segregation, that old came up, even it wasn't supposed to be there, but you know when you're when you're not being treated like somebody else, you know. A lot of times I went on summer camps where I was the officer in charge, you know. I was the main officer there. At that time I was carrying a major. My rank was major. And so that's where I built up a lot of confidence too. I built up a lot of experience, you know, running things, experience. So I know my OERs was no way that I wasn't being able to be promoted. And when the final analysis came down, it was said that I had been promoted to lieutenant colonel, but I had federal recognition, but the state, Montgomery, and the unit was holding me back. And they had changed commanders at the 109th at the time. They had a new commander, and he was telling me that, you know, I'm just getting here. I want to observe you. I want to see what you can do. And I give it to you. Just wait another year, I give it to you. And I couldn't take that. I mean, I talked to my brother in Washington, D.C. They really wanted me to turn my promotion down. Just defer it, just turn it down, and just wait. But my brother told me, he said, you don't turn down anything that the Army offer you, and especially a promotion. He said, my advice to you, he said, get out of that unit, get in another unit. And so that's what I had to do. Eventually, after I'd been pushed around and denied, you know, and time was ticking because you're on the board, you got the promotion. And in some kind of way it's been stalled on somebody's desk. I'm gonna have to move, but it's gonna be junked somewhere. So I finally joined the 75th Field Hospital in Tuscaloosa. They accepted me. I went down as assistant chief nurse. That's what my assignment was when I went down there. And they pinned me with my lieutenant colonel. I think I was down there about no more than 6 months because they couldn't understand why didn't I have my rank. And I said, but they was telling me that I had to wait, you know, I had to wait on it. And they said, well, you got federal recognition. I didn't realize it was separate like that. They said, you already got federal recognition. He said, the state just had signed it over. You just waiting for the National Guard to sign your papers because you already lieutenant colonel.
Was that, and I think I can ask my own question. Alabama being Alabama,
Absolutely. That's the way I felt. It was Alabama being Alabama. There was given so much false information, it was unreal. And like I say, my brother, he had been in the service. And I used to kind of confer with him, and my sister was in service too. And they was telling me, no, the Army don't operate like that. They had never been in a National Guard unit. They was already federal. So they knew how Army regulations and things supposed to go. They said, no, you don't, things like that don't happen. So you got federal recognition, they supposed to have been defending you, with your rank. But like I say, that was just Alabama being Alabama. And it was also coming from the little chief nurse that was over the 109. Because we was all moving in the same pace, the same way. And when they saw how egotistic I was going to get my BS degree when they first started bringing that out. When I went back to UAB, when I came back with my diploma from UAB, the same diploma that they had for me, then they knew I was serious. So they was trying to find other ways to stop me. But like I said, I had to transfer out of that unit.
Sure.
I had to transfer out of that unit.
I'm going to mention a few names. And again, this recording serves two purposes, looking at the history of Titusville as well as the experience of blacks in the 50s and 60s. Toward that end, again, I want to say a few names. You tell me what you think of those individuals. George Wallace.
George Wallace. Remember him he was the governor. And remember him saying segregation today, tomorrow, and forever. I know he was responsible for the junior colleges, I think, because the junior colleges came up under when he was governor. That was good. But as far as integrating the schools, stopping integration, Alabama was going to stay segregated as far as he was concerned as the governor. And that was like a no-no to me, because I realized if you want something bad enough, and if you work at it hard enough, you could get it. My school improved that to me. And so he was a negative to me.
Bull Connor.
I remember Bull Connor riding around in that little, what was that thing he rode around in? Army. I can't call the name what I want to say right now, but I remember him being very vocal against integration, very active in the dogs, when they had to put the dogs on the children, and the hose pipe and all of that. He was a figure that he let you know how he felt too. He was a segregationist, and that's the way he saw it. And that's the way he ran his police force. I think he was over the commission over the Birmingham police. And so that's the way he ran them. And they thought they could get by with anything.
Fred Shuttlesworth.
I remember Shuttlesworth. He was most of my contact with Shuttlesworth when I would see him at the different meetings when Dr. King would come to town. And they would just like, they have their entourage, and there's people that would gather. I would see Dr. Shuttlesworth, but I know he was vocal, very vocal on the segregation. He was very vocal on trying to get things integrated and trying to get things better. And at the time, they was really aiming at the schools and the lunch counters. That looked like that was their main focus, the schools and the lunch counters, that they would make sure they wanted to get integrated, and the buses. Buses started out really first, and the buses. So I remember Dr. Shuttlesworth.
What, if anything, do you remember or know about Freedom Riders?
I don't know that much about Freedom Riders. I knew that they were out there, and there was different people joining, even white people that was joining the Freedom Riders and everything. And just what you would hear on the news and where places they would be and what they were going through, some of the hardship that they were going through. some of the trauma, even deaths that they were going through. I knew about that, you know. And I had sisters to go to jail. 3 of my sisters under me, they went to jail. I wanted to go, but my mother told me I was going to stay at home with my children. I couldn't go. So I had one sister that was in the Fair Park, and the other 2 went to jail. But all 3 of them was involved in that. I was involved in it as much as I could, but I really wanted to go to jail, but I couldn't on account of my kids. My mother told me I couldn't go.
Now, most people would say that they want to avoid going to jail. And indeed, what I've told young boys when I've taught Sunday school, you want to avoid getting in trouble unless the reason for getting in trouble justifies doing it. Going to jail meant something, didn't it?
It did, and I really wanted to go. The only thing stopped me, my mama told me, your kids, you're not going. And I had my husband, she didn't mention my husband. She could have said your husband and your children. She said your children. She said the 3 of them gone. She said, no, you're going to stay here with your children. I just wanted to go because I wanted, look like that would be my stand and let them know. I wanted this to stop. I wanted integration. I wanted to be able to go to school. My kids coming up to go to schools they wanted to go to. I wanted to take them to a lunch counter. That would have been my way of showing. That's what Dad and them did, but I wanted to make a different stand. So I supported it all in every way. And even I put my children in school. My husband was totally against it. I pulled them out of Washington School. I put them in Avalada Fatima at that time, and I started supporting, you know, the Catholics want you to support everything that they do, the bingos and all that kind of stuff. So we got involved in that. And they stayed in Avalada Fatima until we moved to West End. And after my husband passed, then it was hard for me to get them over here. I had already bargained with the lady if she would, if I would take them, would she pick them up? Because I was on evening duty. I would take them and I would pick them up. It worked for a while, and then it didn't. My kids had to cross 6th Avenue to go to my mother's house, up by the church where South Elyton is. That's why our home house was on First Avenue, and they would have to cross that busy street, and it got next to me. So I took them out and put them in the schools there. Cynthia, the baby girl, went to Jackson, and my other 2, Dottie and my son, they went to West End. They went to West End High.
When you had that desire to go to jail, to take that stand, would you be making the stand for yourself or for your children?
I wouldn't be making the stand, I think, for both. I was thinking about myself and maybe at that time because I wanted to show, and I wasn't satisfied with, you know, how things were going, knowing my children would benefit from it, though. But I guess I was making a stand, you know, for myself. You know, this is the way I feel about it. And it's just, I'm tired of it. It's enough is enough.